Twisted Metal was, and I suppose technically still is, a series of vehicular combat games created by David Jaffe, yes, the God of War guy, and the now defunct company Single Track. Despite being the longest running PlayStation console exclusive, it's been around 7 years since anyone has heard anything about a new installment. The PS4 has come and is on its way out the door, with not a single Twisted Metal release to call its own. Now, it does sort of make sense. The company responsible for the main series Twisted Metal games dissolved some time ago, and Jaffe spent most of this generation on the incredibly mediocre and ugly as sin shooter Drawn to Death. But to say that Drawn to Death or studio closure was the reason for Twisted Metal's silence would be disingenuous of me. Twisted Metal is a series steeped in innovation and prestige, yes, but also in mismanagement and mistakes. Control issues, cancelled games galore, and multiple developer shifts have caused the series over time to lose its foothold and identity. Regain said identity, only to stumble out of greatness once more, falling as a victim to the passage of time and changing trends. From homicidal clowns to demonic businessmen, from tongue-in-cheek humor and violence to a dark, sadistic nightmare, this is APOCALYPSO, the rise and fall of Twisted Metal. It's been well documented at this point that the original Twisted Metal began its life as an idea David Jaffe and Scott Campbell had while sitting in traffic one day. Jaffe explains that whenever he was sick of waiting around in gridlock, he found himself wishing his car were packed with missiles he could just fire away and clear out the surrounding vehicles. After working together with other members of his team, they eventually retooled the idea into a demolition derby-style game called High Octane. Gotcha. But seriously, the names they considered were High Octane, Urban Assault, or Cars and Rockets, before finally settling upon Twisted Metal. Funnily, Urban Assault was so close to being the finalized name that there exist promotional materials and files in the game using said name. The game would feature outcasts and misfits from 90s LA in modified vehicles trying to blow each other up and cause as much chaos as possible for a chance at a prize. Now, what prize could possibly be worth this rampant destruction of people and property? Anything. Twisted Metal is a tournament run by a powerful and malevolent man named Calypso. A comic released to tie in with Twisted Metal 2 reveals that Calypso was a normal man named William Sparks, who lived in a constant state of depression after accidentally running over his little sister when he was a child and being forced to clean up her remains by his parents. Calypso took to a life of dangerous races and stunts, secretly hoping this lifestyle would eventually kill him. One day, while driving with his daughter Krista and falling asleep, Calypso got his wish. Now deceased, with his face horribly burnt by the wreck, Calypso lived in hell for 2 years until he was able to outrace a demon named Minion and meet with the devil himself. Satan liked the cut of Calypso's jib, and decided to grant Calypso his return to the living world, as well as the power to grant wishes, under the condition that he runs a destruction derby tournament on Earth to cause as much death and destruction as possible. Calypso accepts the proposition, and he decides to use this wish-granting power as a prize, a deceptive lure used to coax any degenerate or desperate souls to join his new tournament that he would dub Twisted Metal. Twisted Metal is ostensibly a simple contest. The objective? Kill every other racer in the tournament. The prize? Anything your heart desires. The first Twisted Metal game takes place on Christmas Eve in the far-off year of 2005, during the 10th annual iteration of the tournament. You select from 12 different drivers, each with their own backstory and vehicle, from a cop trying to stop the Twisted Metal tournament to the Grim Reaper himself vying for Calypso's soul. There's plenty of variety between the selectable characters. Which one you select is very important, as while all vehicles have access to front-mounted machine guns and an array of missiles that can be picked up throughout the map, they also have a unique special weapon and stats that make some characters easier to play than others. And by that I mean, pick one of the large vehicles with a lot of armor or you're pretty much fucked. The levels are all arenas with the simple goal of eliminating all the other contestants before you bite it yourself. This is much easier said than done, as the Twisted Metal games are no cakewalk, and the controls and strategies really take a lot of adjusting to get used to. Picture the battle mode from Mario Kart, but running at twice the speed and half the frame rate. This makes precision and leading your shots a near impossibility. You are driving a vehicle, after all, with all the stiffness and physics that premise comes with. This is a reason many cite as the reason they prefer this game over others in the series, and While I can respect that opinion, I cannot understand it. Saying I want the controls to be stiff and bad, it improves the game, is not an argument I think I can take part in. Even Scott Campbell himself said the controls, quote-unquote, sucked. While we will discuss this later in depth in another video, the series' inability to shake these control issues was a large factor in its downfall. Once you adjust yourself and start memorizing item layouts, you will steadily begin to make progress through the game. This progression is very simple in concept and will be mirrored in almost every Twisted Metal game that follows. You battle an increasing number of enemy combatants in various locales, picking up special weapons and healing yourself at these stations. After somewhere between 5 to 10 levels, you encounter a boss of some sort, usually Minion, who I mentioned earlier, or a version of Sweet Tooth. In Twisted Metal 1 specifically, there are 6 levels that culminate in a boss fight against Minion and his signature Mind Tank, a secret military vehicle that is controlled by the thoughts of its driver. You are given 3 lives to complete the game. Not 3 per level, 3 total. I think you see where the difficulty is starting to seep in. This is the equivalent of playing a strategy game where you get a 3-man team and the opposing team gets 30. Doable, yes, but only at the price of immense time and skill. Or, you know, just use the passwords they give you and restart the level as many times as you want. This makes the game totally beatable, but even if the game is designed around it, if I game over, I feel like I failed. Just restarting every other level makes it feel like I'm cheating, and I don't want to do it, but you'd have to be really good at this game to complete it with only the 3 lives you're given. You may be tempted to play the game on easy mode, but don't, as Twisted Metal games don't let you play all the levels or see the endings if you play on easy. Kinda makes the mode pointless, but whatever. I only say this because, trust me, you're gonna be tempted to play on easy. It feels like none of your projectiles actually damage the enemy, but the enemy so much as taps you and you explode. Keep in mind as well that the AI is just that, an AI, so it doesn't have to deal with the slippery controls and can effortlessly dodge your attacks and snipe you with missiles. It also doesn't appear to need to pick up weapons, and just has an infinite supply of whatever weapon it wants. To top this all off, you know how Twisted Metal is supposed to be a free-for-all contest? Well, someone needs to tell the other drivers that. The computer players basically never attack each other. Even when they do, it appears to be unintentional, and they surely never kill each other. You can leave an opponent with a sliver of health, let them roam around the map for a while, and I promise you, they'll still be alive the next time you see them 99% of the time. I understand why this is programmed the way it is. It would be stupid if you could just drive in circles and wait for the AI to kill each other. But at the same time, it puts you at a pretty distinct disadvantage, especially in later Twisted Metal games, where the AI is more prone to healing itself. You're the one who has to deal 90% of all damage, so you're the one constantly in harm's way, while the AI just does whatever it wants, until it unloads a million missiles into you right as you finish off someone else. Oh, a side note, I didn't know where to put anywhere else. The hit detection is kinda terrible, so there's that. After your chosen driver defeats everyone else, you are granted an audience with Calypso that is ultimately disappointing. You are given a scrolling wall of text and what appears to be a live-action still of Calypso. If you're into cut content like me, then this might pique your interest, as it seems pointless to design and dress up a man in a costume for a singular still, rather than just creating a piece of artwork for the ending. Come to think of it, the character select screen also had live-action stills for all the drivers. How very peculiar. This mystery would remain a mystery until the release of Twisted Metal Head-On Extra Twisted Edition, a game we'll talk more about later, but for now all you need to know is it featured a lot of behind-the-scenes content for the Twisted Metal franchise. One of the most interesting of which was a series of FMVs called The Lost Endings. These were a set of live-action videos originally created for the endings in Twisted Metal 1, but were cut for reasons I hope are obvious to you.
Sounds good to me, baby!
These things are... well, they're amazing. They're my favorite kind of cheese. 90s video game cheese. They're silly, poorly shot, even funny at times. I mean, look, you can see the boom mic in this one. It's right there. You can tell these were filmed quite some time before the game released, as they referred to the tournament as High Octane, which, if you recall, was the first name they chose before Twisted Metal.
Let it be recorded that on this night, December 24th, 2005, Officer Carl Roberts is granted a world free of the high-octane competition.
For the most part, the endings themselves are the same across both renditions, with the text endings basically being the scripts of the FMVs, with a few exceptions, of course. While later games will portray Calypso as a manipulative trickster who basically monkey's paws the winner's wish, in this game he's just kind of a dick. There really isn't anything clever about him, but it's still fun. Spectre's ending is probably the best one. Check this shit out.
Did you get a chance to read over my request?
I did. Here's your answer. Here is your future.
This is it? This is gonna bring me back to life?
It will. Back to the wife you left behind. Back to the little girl you've never seen. Back to the world of the living.
Thank you, Calypso. Thank you, my God. What's happening?
You're being born again.
God, thank you, Calypso. I feel great. I feel alive. I feel...
Betrayed.
What? No. Don't. Please, don't.
I giveth, and I taketh away. Try again next year, truck driver.
Calypso, no. Please, don't. No!
Despite its difficulty and control problems, Twisted Metal was a big hit when it was released, surprising the developers greatly, as all pre-release focus testing it had done led them to believe people hated the game. Twisted Metal quickly became a PlayStation must-have and cemented the flaming sweet tooth head as a gaming icon. It also technically came out on PC, but I've never seen a copy of it, known anyone who's played it, or even heard a single person ever mention it, so draw your own conclusions from that. The game sold 1.12 million copies, which was an insane amount in 1995, and with success like that, a sequel was most certainly on its way. In 1996, just 1 year after the original, Twisted Metal 2 was released. The basic gameplay and story remains much the same, so I won't bore you by explaining it again. Having completely screwed Los Angeles with his previous tournament, Calypso decides to hold Twisted Metal in various locations around the world. 14 contestants, both old and new, battle it out in their souped-up murder machines, once again competing for a wish from the man himself. Wait, you're asking how there are old contestants when the rules of the contest state you're supposed to kill your opponents? Look, if you're going to be asking questions about continuity here, you're going to have a bad time. Twisted Metal doesn't have continuity so much as it has occasional references to past games, as obviously multiple endings contradict each other. Funnily enough, the only game that has a 100% canon ending is 1. The winner is Outlaw, if you're curious, and even that still neglects to explain how previous contestants survived. Anyway, let's talk about what's been changed. For starters, the graphics look a tad smoother, not as jagged and gritty as the first game. In fact, the presentation in general is a lot more palatable. The HUD and various menus are a lot more professional looking rather than the plain text readouts from the previous game. The controls are somewhat improved, but the game's overall speed is still too quick for my taste. They had actually planned early in development to change the vehicles to hover cars, which would have made steering more manageable. While I like Twisted Metal's heavy metal inspired art style, the ability to strafe in the vehicles would be a godsend, though obviously they didn't end up following through on that idea. The maps in general are larger, with designs that are more colorful and varied rather than dark LA Street Number 4, going to places like Paris, Moscow, and Antarctica. This is also the first Twisted Metal game to introduce secret areas. If you use specific weapons in specific locations, or jump towards certain areas, you can gain access to a new part of the map that's filled with weapons and health. There are even teleporters now to help you get to different sections of the larger maps. Vehicles now have the ability to use what amounts to fighting game special moves, in addition to the usual weapons. By pressing a combination of buttons, you can do things such as fire a freezing missile or fling your car into the air. The AI loves to use these abilities, particularly the freeze shot. They'll stick you in place and just all gang fuck you till you're dead. The game feels simultaneously more and less fair than the previous, and I know that sounds confusing, so let me explain. The controls, while still slippery, are a step up from Twisted Metal 1, as well as the level design. They seem to have realized that the maps shouldn't be made entirely out of hallways, as it just resulted in a bunch of crashing and camera problems. Levels are a lot brighter and more open now. These are improvements and certainly welcome ones, but it feels like the opposing contestants were stepped up to compensate. The AI is much more prone to teaming up on you now, often comboing you from one attack to another until your sad ass is dead. It seems like the AI is also more likely to just ram into you and unload all their weapons without moving. regardless of whether it will get them killed or not. I mean, well, why do they care how much damage they take? There's 5 other computer players trying to kill me even if they go down. This happened to me pretty consistently throughout my time playing Twisted Metal 2. I'd have around 50 to 75% of my health left only to get stuck on an enemy vehicle and be completely destroyed in mere seconds before I could do anything. There is something that helps to turn the tides in your favor, however, and it's probably my favorite feature that the series has ever added: 2-player contest mode. This allows you to play the game with a friend as an ally, rather than just versing each other. In my opinion, this is the definitive way to play the game, and all other Twisted Metals that feature said mode. Even when you're getting boned by the AI, it's more fun with a friend, though you kinda have to make sure you and your friend are at the same skill level, as you now share the 3 lives, so be careful about that. Also, for whatever reason, you cannot get ending videos when playing co-op. You'd think you'd get both, or at least player 1's ending, but no, you're actually punished for having friends in this instance. This comes off to me as one of those pointless, old-school, exclusive club-style design choices that I'm not very fond of. You know those games that only give you the real ending if you make every right choice, find every secret area, never die, play the game on the hardest difficulty, and complete the whole thing in 10 minutes? Twisted Metal is obviously not that severe, I'm just making a point. So what if I played the game with someone else? It's a 30-second FMV, not a $1 million mansion, for fuck's sake. I still beat the game, just give me the stupid ending. All this did was make recording more time-consuming and less fun. When you eventually clear all the stages, you'll be faced with the final boss, Darktooth, a giant black and purple version of Sweet Tooth piloted by the taxi driver from Twisted Metal 1, Charlie Kane. He's here to get revenge on you for the death of his son Needles, and okay, this is gonna require some explaining, and it's important we clear this up now because it'll come up in later games. See this fella here? Well, colloquially known as Sweet Tooth, that's technically the name of his ice cream truck. The driver, the actual clown's name, is Needles Kane, or at least it is for now. Like I said, continuity is a mess. You may be rightly wondering, who the fuck names their kid Needles? And the answer is nobody. Needles is actually the split personality of a man named Marcus Kane, the mentally disturbed driver of Roadkill, who doesn't believe that the world of Twisted Metal is real and wishes only to wake up from this nightmare. The details are never really dove into, but I just figure it was for the best you be made aware of at least a little about the franchise's mascot. It'll also keep you from being confused if I say Needles instead of Sweet Tooth at some point. So anyway, you defeat Darktooth and then return to New York to get your wish from Calypso. This is where the Twisted Metal endings begin to form their identity. Despite winning the contest, almost every possible driver's wish is distorted in some way. I compared it to the short story The Monkey's Paw earlier, because that really is the best description. The driver makes a wish, Calypso either takes them too literally or just fucks around with semantics to turn the wish against them. Not because Calypso is stupid and doesn't understand, he just thinks it's funny. For example, these 2 schmucks wish to be able to fly. Calypso grants their wish and the 2 immediately leap off the building to their deaths, with Calypso then revealing that he had a pair of plane tickets for them. The endings mostly continue in this fashion. They're a lot more interesting to look at this time, as they've gone for an exaggerated comic book art style. Characters like Calypso definitely benefit from this style change. He actually looks like a demonic businessman with burnt skin, instead of an angry ginger with strawberry jelly smeared on his face. Most versions of him from now on, barring Twisted Metal Black, are based on this appearance at least somewhat. When the ending is finished, Calypso, voiced by the awesome Mel McMurrin, will almost always look to the player and say his now famous farewell message.
I am Calypso, and I thank you for playing Twisted Metal. I am Calypso, and I thank you for playing Twisted Metal. I am Calypso, and I thank you for playing Twisted Metal.